And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunderings and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain. Mount Sinai was completely in smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Its smoke descended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly.
So what was the date when the UK made the ruling that Israeli government could no longer use a picture of the Western Wall? It was April 14th, 2010, the very day an Icelandic volcano erupted. You know, Al, I was actually planning to fly back to Switzerland. And
From where? New York?
From Cincinnati.
Okay.
I had canceled my flight, and I decided to take it a week later, and I had to cancel because of this eruption. For a whole month, no one was able to fly in or out, and they were asking people not to buy new tickets and to let those stranded. So it postponed my return for an extra month.
So you were one of the people actually affected by this event.
And I saw it as God, in a way, keeping me in the United States. So I guess that's where he wanted me to stay. So anyway, by the next day, the ash had covered much of Europe, yes, and all of England. Every single plane in Great Britain was grounded. Ever since, Israel recaptured her ancient capital in 1967, the Western Wall has been the most recognized image of the reborn nation of Israel. One detail is forgotten by people. It was only after Jerusalem had been returned to the Jews that all the holy places in the holy city were open to people of all religions. When the Jordanians controlled the holy city before 1967 and the Six-Day War, no Jew was allowed to pray there. Moreover, at that time, the Western Wall was approached through a scruffy, neglected, narrow alley, with lean-to houses cramming the area a couple of meters from the wall.
So how could the British government have the audacity to tell Israeli officials they could not use the Western Wall as a symbol of Israel? The ASA claimed that readers were likely to understand that the places featured in the itinerary and on the poster were all within the state of Israel. The ASA officials said the ad implied that part of East Jerusalem featured in the poster was part of the state of Israel also. ASA concluded that the ad was likely to mislead the public. A few days later, the black volcanic cloud floated miles above the earth between Iceland and Great Britain and posed a threat to jet engines. Some of the particles in the ash clouds are plain rock dust, and others are jagged-edged shards of glass, which can get sucked into jet engines. The ash clogs up the plane's air intake, and the glass particles actually melt inside the engine and fuse solid. For 6 days, planes were grounded in Great Britain and parts of Europe. The airline shutdowns were the worst since 9/11. On the 7th day, God's number of completeness, the eruption eased, and England's airports sprang to life again. Those 6 days cost the UK $1.2 billion. Do you think that was a coincidence?
No. And it just shows that when God wants a point made, he keeps making his point. He's not going to relinquish.
Over and over.
Yes.
Nearly all of Europe was visited by the dark cloud nearly a month after the fierce explosion of ash and lava. There were still random airline disruptions across Europe because of the ash cloud. As one airline official said, quote, "We can't predict our flight schedules because the cloud keeps moving around," unquote.
That's right.
So how long did it take you to get back?
Well, I realized that it was only until a whole month later that they were able to start taking a new, passengers. I mean, they were asking that you would not take any flights.
Okay.
And so in the end, well, for me personally, I decided that gave me just an extra amount of time to really reconsider.
There has always been a reason hidden in.
What do these disasters mean from a spiritual aspect? First of all, it reminds us that this universe is in God's hands. With the flick of his little finger, he can bring a nation to a grinding halt and affect the affairs of men on all continents. It is God who puts kings and presidents and rulers in power. The UK's official government spokeswoman said, quote, "We're all at the mercy of the volcano, and there is just no way of knowing how long it will continue to erupt. We would normally be getting a southwesterly winds at this time of the year, and it's pretty unusual to have northerly winds dominating the weather. It is very much a day-to-day situation at the moment. The volcano died down a bit for a spell, but has gotten more active recently," unquote. Note what she said. It is unusual for northerly winds to sweep the clouds from Iceland down to Europe at this time of the year. It's usually the other way around. You think that was a coincidence?
No, Al, I don't. So, the darkness in Europe reminds us of the 10 plagues of Egypt when God was determined to free the children of Israel from her Egyptian slave masters. There were 3 days of darkness, which the Bible said was so thick that no one moved from their house. Why would such a disaster strike Great Britain and Europe? God says he will bless those who bless Israel, and he will curse those who curse Israel. It is brazen and impudent for human beings to dictate to Israel that she cannot claim the wall that surrounded Antonia's fortress. There are numerous scriptures warning that nations must not tangle with Jerusalem. What lover of Israel doesn't know Zechariah 12:3? And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all the peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all nations of the earth are gathered against it. Of course, this farcical demand of not using the kotel was only one of continuous attacks against Israel by Europeans. UK academics